In this video, we're going to talk about how to make lower thirds. And lower thirds is what you often see on documentaries or news packages where you see the person's name and their title. Okay? Such as this. Let me play this and show you what this looks like.
I've installed over 100 photovoltaic systems in my career, and I am proud to get up every morning and go to work.
So that is a lower third. Notice we have his name and we have his title, professor. He's not really a professor, but I put that in there anyway. Okay, so how do you create a lower third? And lower thirds are very important in news and in documentaries. There are many times in many video types of projects, many types of video projects where you will use a lower third. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead actually and delete the Brian lower third. Now let's start from scratch. So we can place our playhead where we would like it to appear, and I'm just going to go to my title bar and go to new title and then go to default still, and then I can type the name for the lower third. So if this is Brian, I might put in Brian, and then I can type out lower third. I'm going to put LT to be lazy, and then hit OK. And then you can see here that we've opened up the lower third or the still box. And you'll see this same box when it comes to creating credits. Okay, you'll use this same box. Alright, so creating a lower third, how do you do that? Well, I'm a big fan of keeping it simple. And so let me show you something simple. You can basically, first you need to type in your text. So I'm going to type in my text, and I've selected the top tool here, or the letter T on our keyboard. And then I'm just going to type out, I'm going to go down here and type out his name, Brian, and let's call him Brian Kirk. Okay. Alright, that's his name. And we can go up here and actually make the size of this text smaller, which most likely you would want to do. Okay, and then I'm just going to move it down here a little bit. Now, notice that we have these two bars around the frame. This bar and this bar. And it goes all the way around the frame. This bar right here is what we call the title safe bar. And this bar is called the action safe bar. Okay, so this gets complicated, but on some televisions, if you go outside, especially the action safe bar, it will actually go off screen. Okay, so some televisions actually cut the screen off past the action safe bar. If you want your titles to be sure that they're on screen, you want them to be sure that they're on screen, you would make sure that you keep any kind of lower third inside the title safe bar. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. Alright, so we have the name of Brian Kirk. And we could have chosen, we can actually choose now to change the type of font. So I can pick different types here that's preset. Okay. Alright, so we've got different types of fonts here. And of course, some of these would be outrageous to use for just news packages. But for a documentary or something else, you can kind of play around with these. You can even go yellow if you wanted to, or a dark orange. Okay. Now, I'm a big fan of Arial Black and of any kind of Helvetica font, Helvetica. Okay, and there's also some good fonts in the presets here that would be good for news. Okay, I think Adobe Garmin White 90 looks okay. For news, we don't want it to be too outrageous. We want it to be fairly subdued. Okay. All right, so let's just go with Brian Kirk. Let's go with the Adobe font here. Now let's talk about the title properties box. There are many options here that you can choose. Okay, the fill box actually controls your color and how the color looks, and we can do some gradients where we have multiple colors on the words instead of one solid color. Okay, I've got white. We can choose yellow or neon green or whatever we want to here, and click OK, and you can see that it has changed it. I'm going to undo that with Command Z. And now we want to make sure that we have an outer stroke. I think outer strokes look okay, especially in documentaries. Again, for news, you can decide whether or not you think that looks okay for a news package. So we have an outer stroke here. I'm going to go ahead and select the box so that I can modify it. And right now it's set for edge, and if I increase the size, you might be able to see the effect that it has. Okay, and I'm not going to add too much to this. I'm going to leave it alone. I think it was on, let's just turn it back down here to maybe that, on 9. Okay, and that's our outer stroke, and we can always remove an outer stroke if we don't like it by just kind of unchecking this box, and it's back to normal. Okay, again, we don't want to be outrageous with this, but you can kind of play around with this. Now, shadow. Let me uncheck the shadow, and you can see what it looks like without a shadow. And sometimes on your project you may not have this checked, so you need to check it to activate the shadow. And then we can play around with the distance of the shadow. So watch again the words. You can see that we are affecting the shadow, and so I'm just going to kind of pull back a little bit. Again, not being overly strong on the shadow here. Okay, and then we can also affect the spread, which is basically your softness. How soft is the shadow? If I turn it up, you can see the subtle changes it's made. Okay, and again, I'm not going to overdo it. I'll leave it about right there. And your adjustments have to be based on your project, not necessarily my adjustments for this project, because I'm showing you an example. Okay, so let's just say I'm happy with that. Okay, and you can change many things in here, and I'm not going to get into all of this, but you can change that if you want to. Now, we want to create, for most lower thirds, a second line which lists the title of the person. So, are they a professor? Are they a senior installator? What do they do? Computer scientist? Okay. So to do that, I'm going to click on the lower third and just hold Option, the Option key on our keyboard, and then move down with my arrow key, and you can see that we have an exact copy of Brian Kirk, and it has copied everything that we did just now. The fill, the outer stroke, the shadow, all that's been copied as well. So we have pretty much the same characteristics with both lines. Okay, I'm going to let go, and you can adjust the size of this, which you will want to. You'll want to adjust the size. Usually the second line is smaller than the first line, so I'm just going to pull that down, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, and we can see now that we went outside of our title safe box, so I'm going to move this back in right to the edge. Okay, and I still think, for my purposes, the top one's a little bit big, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and then make this one a little bit smaller. Alright, and then again, I'm going to look and see where it's at. Can I move this down farther? Looks like I can. Right to the edge of the title box. Move this down a little bit. And now let me change his title here by hitting the T tool, or the top tool. And I'm just going to call him Professor. Alright, and we've changed that. And now, if we're done, we can just X out, and we should have in our project pane the Brian lower third. And let's just take a look and see which one's which. That's my previous one that I had, and here is my new one. Okay, we can modify it by double clicking on it again and opening back up the title box. So let's just take and drag the lower third out here and look at it. That looks okay, right? Looks okay. Now notice how it just pops up because we have no cross dissolve here. You can do that if you want to. Mostly we see this in documentaries, and use packages. But if you wanted to put a cross dissolve, you could just go to Effects, go to Transitions, and then Dissolve, and then Cross Dissolve. And then you can see here that it appears. Okay, and then we can add another one to dissolve it out. And so we run back.
100 photovoltaic systems in my career, and I am proud to get up every morning and go to work.
Okay. All right. So that's how you do a simple lower third. Now, let's say that you want to put a box or a rectangle behind this. Put the words in a box. Okay? So this is how you do that. We go to our rounded rectangle tool here. We've got all kinds of boxes to pick from, but we're going to do the rounded rectangle tool. Okay? And I'm just going to take and basically draw this box out. Okay, just draw it out a little bit more. And I'm going to go to the edges of our action safe window here, and I'm just going to move this a little bit off screen so that we're not taking up the entire screen. Okay, and then actually maybe a little bit more. Okay, and then we've got white on white. That's not going to work. So we want to change the color, of course. And you can select, go to your selection tool or push V, select the new rectangle box, okay? And then go to fill top. Notice it says fill top here, fill, and then we pick the fill top, click in the box, and then we can change our colors. So I don't know what I would like here, maybe a light blue, or a dark blue, or something bright. It's up to you, really. Let's just pick that color and see what happens. Okay, so that's really solid, and what you could do, you actually could lower the opacity. So if I lower the opacity, you can see that I'm actually making it kind of lighter, so you can actually see through to the video. Okay, and then we can see that we've got words behind that, right? So how do we get our words to come to the front? So watch this. So I click on the rectangle box again, and then I hit Control on my keyboard and click. And then we can see all these different options here. And I'm just going to go to Arrange and then say Send to Back. Watch what happens. And you can see that our words have appeared now in front of the rectangle box because I've sent the rectangle to the back. Now we can change this and move this around. It looks like we need to kind of move maybe our words down just a tad to give a little bit of headroom to the words here. Okay, and maybe move this down just a tad, a little bit more, and there we go. Now you can play with many options. If you click on the rectangle box, you can play again with shadow, and you can play with different things that will affect the box. I can actually take out the outer stroke, and then we have that nice looking, it actually looks, I think, better without the outer stroke on the rectangle box. Note, this does not affect your words. Okay, they have their own characteristics. So let's see what this looks like. So I'm done, and so I click out, and you can see that we have the Brian Kirk lower third.